Hello and welcome to our first episode in the series on how to create a professional GraphQL backend. This will not be a typical tutorial series. I am actually working on a project and I will tell you about what the project is about in a later episode. And I'm just working on it, and I take you along the ride so you can learn and figure things out together with me. And of course, if you have questions, you can reach me on Twitter, you can write it in the comments. All the info on how to contact me is down below. So yeah, let's just jump right in. I'm running on Ubuntu. Actually, it's Ubuntu Mate because I'm running in a virtual machine, and Ubuntu Mate is a little bit more resource friendly. And for programming, I use, of course, WebStorm, as you can see. The current Node version I use is 10.15.1, and as a package manager I use Yarn. So let's just create a new project, GraphQL Backend. Is this right? Yeah. So and the first thing we will do is initialize the project. Yeah, that's fine, that is fine, that is fine. Yep. So now you all know how to contact me officially, and you know my age. So this package will be unlicensed and private. Perfect. So let's see, everything is all right. Okay. We are programming in TypeScript, so the first thing we have to do is, of course, install TypeScript and a couple of dependencies and helping projects, and that of course are development dependencies. So I want to run tsnode to have the development server run and compile TypeScript on the fly. Then we need tslint to shout at us when we do something stupid. Of course, we need TypeScript. And in order to define shortcuts for imports, we use tsconfig pass. Let me think, is there anything else? No, that should be it for now. And these are dev dependencies. Yeah. Of course. Add. There we go. So then the next thing, let's set up TypeScript first, one after another. So the first thing we need is a TypeScript config. And because we are on Node.js, we need to customize this a little bit. So let me just look this up. I have some notes on the side of the screen, so I have to look things up from time to time, because of course I don't have everything in my head, but I will show it to you anyways. So we run a node, so I use target ES 2017 just so TypeScript can compile into JavaScript that Node understands and can use some of the native implementation of certain JavaScript features. So then source map is okay. We need experimental decorators. Why we need those, I tell you later. Just go with it for now. We want to include some libraries. This is ES 2017. Sorry, I'm German and sometimes this comes just through. We need ES next for some experimental features, and we need DOM. You probably wonder why I use DOM. This has something to do with the database I will use later. 1 second. I am planning on using ArangoDB, and the client library for ArangoDB has or is browser compatible, and for that it needs DOM even if you run it in Node.js. So if you use another database, you probably don't need it, but I, for this project, definitely need it. So we want this false, suppress implicit any index errors, true, yes, module resolution is not. Then emit decorator metadata, yes please. Declaration to, and just stick with me here for a second. This is kind of the boring stuff here, but it has to be done. All source files, of course, are in the source directory. The base URL is the code book here, and the path configuration. We want this backend to be very modular, and we use or we will use Graphql-modules, and to make the imports a little bit more easy and developer friendly, we create a shortcut for a virtual modules directory, and this will point to it. There we go. This will point to source modules. It just saves us a couple of keystrokes. So that's all on this. Now we need to include source any TS file, of course. and source index ts. This is the entry points, and we exclude node modules, of course. And I'm sorry, I was looking to the side, that's why the audio faded out a little bit. So this is our ts config. I think we have everything. So the next thing we want is the configuration for our TypeScript linter, and I will just copy this from my notes to spare you the torture of sitting through me typing this all from my notes. I will upload this all to, or publish this all to a GitHub repository, so if you want to get the configurations and everything, you can later check it out on GitHub. I'm just going through all this to show you how to set up a startup point for your projects. So that would be TypeScript. Let me just quickly change some settings, and this would be code style TypeScript, and I want single quotes always. It's just my personal preference. You can go with double quotes, but then you need to change this setting here, quote marks. But yeah, as I said, personal preference. Just stick to your project conventions and you will be fine. So that is everything as far as TypeScript goes. The next thing we need is, let me think quickly. Oh yeah, NodeMon. So yarn add NodeMon, and we add it as a dev dependency. And in order to use Graphql-modules, we also need to reflect metadata. And this is also a dev dependency. So then the most important thing for every project is a logger to log errors and debug outputs. And for this project I go with Pino. So we add Pino as a normal dependency. And just to make our dev experience a little bit nicer, we use Pino pretty for our development server, and we also install the type definitions for Pino as dev dependency. So then we have all the dev dependencies for now. Then in order to actually run something, we need Apollo server. and you can choose any of the integrations for Apollo server, if it is Express, HP, Core, whatever you use. I'm starting from scratch, and Apollo server version 2 already comes with Express inside, and because of the modular way we program this backend, I don't actually need much functionality from Express or any other backend framework, so I go with the standard Apollo server. And yeah, we need to add it actually, so we need Apollo server and GraphQL. And then of course we add the types for GraphQL, just so that WebStorm or whichever editor you use will give us a nice code auto completion. So that is types GraphQL, and that's another dev dependency. So in order to configure our project, we use environment variables, and for that I install .env, and we also want to install the Graphql-module stuff. I use Graphql-modules core and Graphql-modules DI. I explain to you what that is exactly later on. And last but not least, we install the types for .env as a dev dependency. So that's pretty much it in order to run our basic development server. Now all we want to do is add some scripts, and the first script we need is start to run our dev server, and the command we want to run is nodemon access exec ts node and require ts config register, and then run the source index.ts, and we want to pipe everything to Pinot Pretty with coloring and formatted timestamps. So that should be everything. If we start this script now or run the script now, we should get an error message. Could not find tsconfig register. Why? tsconfig paths register. I'm sorry. tsconfig paths. So let's try this again. Run. There we go. Yeah, couldn't find the index ts. Of course, we don't have one yet. That's totally fine. So yeah, let's stop this for now. We can actually put this over here so that I can have the terminal open in case we need it. So yeah, that's our basic setup. That's actually a pretty sound starting point. What we want to do now is add the source directory, and in the source directory, of course, we need the, where is it? Oh, I forgot something. Yes, of course, we also want to use a editor config, and I just copy this in here again. It's not much, but it's very helpful if you work in a team and you have several people working on the same files, that you have a basic configuration for most code editors who support editor config. It just says we want Unix style line feeds. We want a line feed at the end of the file, so basically an empty line. We want to use spaces for indentation, and the indentation size is 2 spaces, and the character set is UTF-8. Very basic stuff at all. So now TypeScript file. Yeah. So we need a index ts. This is where our server lives, and we want to first of all import reflect metadata and .env config. This is just to activate reflect metadata and our environment variables. We don't have some yet, but we will have some later, and that's just some basic setup. And we need it in each entry point we have into the software, and currently that's only index.js. So next, now we come to the actual GraphQL part, or we have our first contact to GraphQL. The way GraphQL applications usually are done, or they are shown in almost every tutorial, is that you have one long text, one long string with type definitions, then you have a object with resolver functions, and then you compile this all into a schema and configure your GraphQL server build. This is fine, it works, but it's not very modular, not very maintainable if you want to create larger applications. And thankfully somebody went and created Graphql-modules, and the thing Graphql-modules does is it enables you to write modular GraphQL applications. So it's a very nice tool, and it doesn't have a readme for whatever reason. But okay, I will show to you how it works as we move forward. The first thing we need is, of course, our modules directory. And inside modules, we want to define a core module. And the way Graphql-modules work enables you to have basically unlimited depths of modularization. We have this core module now, and inside the core module we can define submodules for database access, for utility functions, to utility types, logger, all the things that you need, I'm sorry. And you can include them in all your other modules, and you don't have a tight binding. And the nice thing is, with TypeScript you can define your interfaces, and let's say we want to abstract a database interface. We won't do this for this project, but it's a possibility. You can just define your interface for the database in your core module, then write different database modules for different databases that implement this interface, and you can just switch them out plug and play style in your project. It's very nice for maintainability and for code reusage. Yeah. The first thing we need, of course, is, let me just quickly throw a index TS in here. We need this later on. So let's close this. And the first thing we need is a logger. As I said before, we use Pino, and we create a logger module TS. And this is where it gets interesting, a logger provider TS. So as you have seen, we didn't just defined Graphql-modules core as a dependency, but also Graphql-modules DI, which is a dependency injection. And for every module you have, you can define providers, and those are bound to the modules, and you can just inject them in all your modules where you need them. It's a very nice thing. You will learn to appreciate it fairly quickly. So let's just implement our very simple provider or our very simple logger provider. So the first thing we need is to import injectable and provider. Come on, stay with me here. Jesus Christ. Provider scope from DI. There we go. And then we need, of course, Pino. I think my keyboard is not straight. Pino from Pino. There we go. So then we defined a Pino instance. Basically, logger is Pino, And of course now my phone has to make sounds. It's advertisement. No. Not as if there would be ever something important. So, yeah, this is our standard logger. No special configuration. We just use it as is, and that's fine. We also want to export it, so just export the named logger, and we want to bind the logger client error to logger error. Logger client error is, I'm not sure if it was something from Graphql-modules or from Apollo server. It's just basically custom function for client errors, as the name says, and we just bind it to our default error handler or error logger log function. So then the next thing we want is a export class logger provider, and this has a private read-only instance of Pinot logger, and we have some public functions here, or methods, not functions. So that would be trace is a Pinot log function, and I just speed this up here a little because this is just a little bit repetitive. So now we just need to define our constructor. This logger is logger. It's just a singleton, basically. We use the same instance all the time. So now we just say this trace is a bound function to this logger trace, and we repeat this for all the other methods we defined. And then we just define a getter for our logger instance, which returns a Pinot logger. Return this logger. So that's basically our whole provider. It's just a short or a thin wrapper around Pinot itself. Now we just make this class injectable, and we give it a scope for provider scope application. There are 3 different scopes that you can give an injectable. The first one is application scope, which is basically a singleton that lives for the lifespan of your application. Then we have a session scope, A session scope is a new instance for each request that your backend handles. And then there is a request scope. I think it was request, which means that basically each function call, each resolver call receives a new instance of your provider. I know the session and request naming is a little bit confusing, but that's what they went with, and you just need to remember is that session is the request and request is the function call or resolver call. So with this we have everything in our logger provider. Now we just need to define our logger module, and this is also just a very thin wrapper around the logger provider. So we need a graphql-module, and we need the logger options from come on here, and then we import the logger provider, and we will import it from index, and I will explain to you why in a second. And then we just export our logger module, which is a new GraphQL module of type logger options, or not of type logger options, but it takes the properties logger options, and configure it with providers, which returns an array of the logger provider. So the reason why we have this indirection here, first of all, we import logger provider from our index.ts instead of importing it directly, and we use a function to return an array of logger provider instead of defining it directly, is just to resolve circular dependencies. And now we just export our logger module, and our logger provider, and then everything is fine. So again, the indirection is just to solve problems with circular dependencies, because some of our code could just require the logger provider, another part of the code could just require the logger module, and by importing everything from index.ts or from core, in the case from outside this module, we make sure that everything is imported in the right order and all the dependencies are resolved. So now we have our logger. Now all we need to do is to write our entry file and actually start a server. So we need to import Apollo server, and then import our logger, which is in the provider what I just told you. So logger from core, there we go. And now we already can see WebStorm here imports it from modules core, which results to the index.ts and offers us everything we need. So in order to start our server, we also need a start module, and this is just the overall app module. TypeScript app module, and the app module is basically an entry point for our server. We have the index.ts, which configures and starts the server, and the server just takes the app module and runs it, and we use app module to define all the to import all the modules we want to use, configure them, and yeah. So what we need in the app module is, of course, the Graphql-module, and we also need GQL from Apollo server. GQL? No, GQL. I'm sorry. GQL. There we go. So, and all we want to, we need the module, of course. The logger module is the most important right now, and the only module we actually have. That's the logger module, and we also want a instance of logger, or the instance of logger, and then we export the app module, which is a new GraphQL module with the import logger module, and it has a simple type definition, so we can see if everything looks fine. Yeah, now WebStorm just freaked out a little bit because it realized, oh, we want to write GraphQL queries, and for that it asks us if we want to configure GraphQL, and we will do that do this in a minute, but for now we just continue here. So our basic type definition is just a simple query time returns int, and we have a resolver for query time, and this just returns new date get UTC date. So that is all on the resolver part, and then we want a logger in our app module, which is our Pinot instance that we defined in the logger provider. And that's all for now. That's the basic setup. Once again, the app module imports the logger module. It has a type def with a simple query just to check if it works, and we give it a logger with the instance of our logger provider, or Pinot in this case. So then we just need to import our app module from app module. Perfect. So and we want the schema, context, and subscriptions. Yeah, from the app module, and we create a server instance, or Apollo server instance. No, Apollo server, and basically just give it the schema, the context configuration, the subscription configurations, and tell it that we want to enable introspection. And don't worry too much about the context and subscriptions. Modules or Graphql-modules enables you to define a context factory for every module you have, and the context here just holds all the different factories for the different resolvers, and subscriptions is the bindings for GraphQL subscriptions. We don't have any of this yet, but we can just put it in here so we don't run into a problem later when we start using it, and we will start using it. That's pretty sure. So yeah, the logger. No, I don't want the logger provider. I want it logger. There we go. So now we just need to start up our server with listen, and server listen, when you use Apollo server, returns a promise, so we can just work with this URL subscription URL. And then we just say logger info server is listening at URL, and logger info subscriptions and point subscriptions URL. That's just for us to basically find the endpoints easier. And yeah, if something goes wrong, we just want to direct it to the logger error handler. That's this. And then we just need to implement a sigint event handler. Just to shut down the server nicely once we stop the script. So logger info, shutting down server, and then we say server stop, which is also a promise again. And we just say once it's stopped, we process exit with 0. There we go. And in case of an error, we log the error and process exit with 1. So, wait, I'm sorry, I hit my boom arm. So that's basically everything we need to create a very simple, very basic GraphQL server. It's a little bit more than in most tutorials, but this is basically the framework we need to create our backend. Now let's just try and run it, and hopefully we didn't make any error, or I didn't make any errors. Yeah, it seems to work. Now let's check out this URL here. That's where our server is running. And there we go. Query time. It just gives us the hour for whatever reason. But yeah, the server is working. Our GraphQL schema is what's the word I'm looking for? Compiled. Everything is working fine. So, shutting down the server. Okay, all is fine. So that's it for the basics. In the next episode, we will probably implement our database interface, and yeah, then we get to the nitty-gritty of creating a backend and implement account management. Means creating user accounts, verifying user accounts, all this stuff. And we do it purely in GraphQL. So we define all the GraphQL mutations and queries for it, implement resolvers, and implement the database queries for it. I hope this video was interesting for you, and yeah, I'm sorry when some things are still off. It's the first episode and it's of course still a little bit rough. I still have to figure out one or two things. I think my audio at some point got a little bit worse because I just turned my head a couple of times. Yeah, I need to see how the video turned out and improve from there. If you have questions, if you have suggestions, yeah, leave them down in the comments. I also have my Twitter in the description, and yeah, you have probably seen my email. If not, I just put it in the description. Different ways to contact me, and every question that comes in I try to answer as good as I can. I also try to learn speaking again. Yeah, hope to see you all in the next episode, which should come out on tomorrow, maybe on today. Let's see. Yeah, have a nice day, evening, wherever you are, and I see you all in the next episode.